episode 19 of the Nothing But Respect podcast. Been a few weeks since we've been on air, and in that time we've announced a new manager. On the last podcast we discussed potential candidates, but the man who's got the job is Brendan Rodgers. On today's show I've got Bruce Hillboy and Hunter. I'll start with Hunter. What have you made of the appointment and what's your general thoughts?
Like most Celtic fans, have been absolutely buzzing with the appointment. It still just doesn't feel real, you know, that Brendan Rodgers is actually our manager. You know, we were up at Celtic Park on Monday and the atmosphere and all that, you know, he's such a big name, you know, managing Liverpool and almost winning the English Premier League title. It's a real statement of intent from the board, and we want to continue our complete domination of Scottish football and make more inroads in Europe, and I'm absolutely delighted with it. I think he's a good manager. The teams he's managed have kind of been known to play an attractive brand of football, which hopefully we'll see at Celtic Park, and I'm just absolutely delighted with the appointment.
Bruce, what's your opening thoughts?
I just felt the same as Hunter. I was just kind of shocked and pleasantly surprised that we managed to get it done over the line, and to be there on Monday to see him unveiled like we ourselves was just brilliant. It was a really good experience, you know, and I think the best thing about it, quite ironically, was he actually left quite disappointed that we're not going to be playing for 6 or 7 weeks.
My thought, well, I still think Ronnie Dyler should be manager. No, I'm joking. It's a fantastic appointment and it's a real statement of intent from Celtic, and I think as much as they've been maligned and criticised in the past, you've got to give credit to Dermot Desmond and that, and I don't know if it's a result of what they've seen in the semi-final or what they've seen in the last 2 years under Dyler, but I think now's the time that they've realised that it's time we press on, and we've always says we should speculate to accumulate, and I think this is a good example of us actually saying let's go out and spend that bit more to try and get back in the Champions League, because I think who knows what the competition's going to be like next year in the league, but I think it's going to be pretty similar to the last 3 or 4 years where we are fully expected to win this league and win it at a canter almost. Probably, I don't think it should be expected to go to the second last game this season, but I think Brendan Rodgers has been brought in to really make a mark in Europe, whether that be Champions League group stage, whether it be an extended Europa run, it remains to be seen, but I'm delighted with it. So it all happened pretty quick. As we were aware, there was quite a number of people getting interviewed last week for the job. Thursday into Friday there was a lot of talk that Rodgers was almost certain, and when we announced it just after 5 on the Friday, us three have a wee group chat for the podcast, and I've never seen that, and Twitter just exploded. I think as you're saying, Hunter, it still doesn't feel real even after Monday. It's just been outstanding. There's been such a buzz about Celtic.
Well, I know that I often find myself kind of going over Celtic's, the official Twitter, you know, and just, you know, thinking, am I really seeing this? You know, have we really appointed Brendan Rodgers? Because it is up there with the appointment of Martin O'Neill. You know, it's huge. You know, I mean, I thought at the time, obviously I was still quite young, but I thought at the time Gordon Strachan was a decent appointment. You know, I even thought Tony Mowbray was going to be a decent appointment. Same with Lennon, and I was pleased with Dyler, but none of those kind of. You didn't think, you know, this is a huge, you know, kind of coup for us, and a huge name that can really take us onto new levels. Well, hopefully, you know, that just feels massive. And I think point you were kind of talking about, maybe people are being a bit frustrated that the board haven't put out more money in terms of bringing in players. I think one of the problems I was thinking about this afternoon was when you have a manager like Dyler, kind of top players at this level that we could get in the past, do they want to play for someone like Dyler? You know, you wonder, do they? And then you think about Rodgers and you think, well, you can imagine Rodgers having the pool to attract players. You get guys that are playing high end of the Championship or maybe low end of the Premiership. You know, when Celtic were under Dyler, they might have thought, no, I'll pass. But Brendan Rodgers is a manager, they might look at that and think, you know what, that's a really good opportunity to play for a manager like Rodgers and maybe play in the Champions League.
I think, as you're saying there, like, you just have to look as far as guys like Suarez and Gerrard who have come out in the past and praised Brendan Rodgers, and I think that will bring us a pool, like an attraction for players to come to Celtic. Bruce, what's your thoughts on the turnout on Monday? Because if you'd have told me that was going to be like that the day after the semi-final, could you have seen it happening?
No, I think we discussed it. Like when Dyler left, we did say like Moyes, Rodgers, they were like the well, Rodgers was a dream, but we did kind of fully expect a middle of the road appointment, and even if we would have beat Rangers in the semi-final, and I think he was still leaving, but if we'd have won the cup on Saturday and then paraded a manager Monday, to be honest, I don't think it would have been Brendan Rodgers. So I think it was that level of apathy and kind of about, like, people like myself were on the verge of not chatting Celtic, but it was like becoming a chore following Celtic the last kind of 6 months with it, as I was somebody that was a bit of a supporter, but it just felt a wee bit, like the way he was handed out, to me it felt a wee bit poor. So if it wasn't somebody worth my while getting excited about, I wasn't really going to be that bothered. But when it was Rodgers, I mean, Monday night, somebody gets to a lot of games, but some crowd, I just felt good to be back at Celtic Park again for a good reason. And I think there was about 13,000 was the total figure bandied about after it, but like, just to get that number on a Monday night, when a lot of people are probably working and just want to get home, is impressive. But that speaks volumes of how big an appointment this is, to get somebody like Brendan Rodgers to come to Parkhead. It's exciting for the future.
What I would add to that as well is, I think that the turnout on Monday night shows that the Celtic support haven't gone away. You know what I mean? I know crowds have been quoted as, we're really realistically, we're looking at 25-30,000 maybe turning up, and I think Monday night showed the supporters are still there. They want to see something better on the park, and they want to see kind of more from the board. And I think Rodgers, like I said, Rodgers' appointment is a kind of appears to be a real statement of intent. We talked about how obviously at the moment we're at something like between 40 and 42,000 season ticket holders, but you can easily see that going up to 50 because of just the real feel-good factor that's about the club now with this appointment.
I think a lot's been made of the wages that Rodgers found, some saying in excess of £2 million a year. But if you sell an extra 5,000 season tickets on that's it paid. Like, I think that's a great point you make, that the fans have never disappeared, they're still there. Like, we were with a few who don't go to Celtic Park as often as they used to, and I think it was just great to see people buzzing about Celtic, and it carried on the feel-good factor from the last game of the season when we've seen quite a few young players coming through as well.
I think we've touched, obviously we've got our group chat and stuff, we've touched a lot upon how kind of big that win against Motherwell was, winning 7-0. It really, we knew Dial was going, we didn't know who the manager was going to be, but winning 7-0, the manner of the performance and the win, knowing that there was going to be a fresh start, there was a real kind of optimism then, and there was a real kind of, I'm looking forward to seeing who the new manager is, and I'm really looking forward to kind of, for so long we wanted this season to finish, but we were kind of itching to still, we're itching to go again really, and you were just hoping for a managerial appointment to keep that buzz going, a Rodgers or a Moyes or a name like that. And when it happened to be that Rodgers, it kept that kind of momentum going, and it just built on it even more.
Hunter, what's your immediate expectations of Rodgers? What does a successful first season look like for him, for you?
It's maybe not going to be in keeping with a lot of Celtic, the way a lot of Celtic fans think at the moment, but for me a successful season will still be winning the league and hopefully having a decent showing in at least the Europa League group stages. I think we need to have a bit of patience here. Obviously coming up against some of the teams that we will in the qualifiers, generally we have bigger wage budgets and obviously we have better coefficients, so we should be making the Champions League group stages. But I think sometimes we get a bit too bogged down in that, and I think for me, I don't think Rodgers has to go and win a treble and do all this and do all that. I think if we can just, even for just this season, put in a good showing in Europa League, maybe get to the last 16, the last 8. I mean, that's obviously getting to the quarterfinals. The Europa League would be pretty massive, but if we could do something like that and win the league again and maybe add a cup to that, as long as we win the league, I think for me that would be the main thing. I mean, I'd obviously want us to have some kind of run in Europe. I would like to get to at least Christmas time in Europe and beyond Christmas time, but I mean, I think there has to be a wee bit of an element of patience and wait and see who he brings in. And I just want to keep my feet on the ground. I don't want to get carried away with ideas of getting to the last 16 of the Champions League and winning a treble at the same time. I think there's still a lot of work to be done in the squad. There's a lot of players who'll need to go in the summer. he'll want to bring new players in. It'll all be a process, but I'm really looking forward to it.
And Bruce, what's your thoughts on the same question?
I agree with Hunter a lot. I think this is not my expectation, this is my thoughts. My thoughts are we're going to win a treble next season and we're going to have a good run in Europe. My expectations would be winning the league and showing a bit of progress, but I would be more happy just to get a good feeling about the club again, which I think, if we had to get on running and make it like more week to week, just like enjoying watching Celtic, and I think Rodgers will make that happen. So my expectation would just be win the league, win a cup if possible. I might have won the treble, there's no denying it, but if I was to say alright, it was a good season, would be the league and a good show in Europe. I do think we need to be a wee bit patient.
See, to cut in on your point there, I would almost kind of liken it to Lennon's first season. He came in on the back of Tony Mowbray and it was a shambles, and what he did was kind of unify the club. Crowds were good. There was a really good atmosphere about the club. When the huddle was just kind of starting in his first season throughout the stadium, and just can't get enough was a big thing for us. And all we won that year was the Scottish Cup. But what Lennon had done, which was quite vital, was really kind of galvanise the support, and without being cliched or whatever, he did bring the thunder back, and I think that's kind of what we need again this season. And so long as we win the league, I think that's the main thing, like you mentioned.
I don't disagree. Obviously, Ronnie Dyler wasn't the only person to leave Celtic. John Collins followed him out, so we were needing an assistant manager as well. That has been breaking news today that it's going to be the first team coach of Reading, Chris Davis. So, Hunter, do you know anything about him? What's your thoughts on that?
Obviously, just that he's been with Brendan Rodgers at Swansea. I think he was there with him at Reading as well. He was obviously at Liverpool with him. And once Rodgers left Liverpool, Davis left Liverpool to go back to Reading, where he's been the first team coach. I think it's good that Brendan Rodgers is able to bring in, somebody he trusts and somebody that's been his kind of right hand man at a couple of clubs. It's vital for him, I think, to have. I think in football, it's always important to have somebody that you can trust. I think as well that the Sunday Times reporter, journalist Jonathan Northcroft said that he thought that Celtic had made a really great appointment in bringing him in. Said he'd spoken to Davis before and he was a bright young coach, so said he'd spoken to him and that he was a bright young coach, and he was maybe not a big name now, but if he was to kind of not put money on it, but if he was kind of to be a betting man or whatever, he would imagine that he would go on to be a big name. So I think it should be a good appointment, and I've got to trust Brendan Rodgers' judgment on that.
Bruce, do you know anything about him?
I've just pulled up his Wikipedia page. He was a captain in Brendan Rodgers' Reading youth team. He's only 31, which I was surprised about. But Rodgers obviously trusts him. He's took him near enough. He's took him from Swansea to Liverpool, so he clearly thinks highly. I think the big thing about this is it shows that Rodgers is bringing in his own men rather than Dyer. As much as I didn't really mind the appointment of John Collins, I think John Collins gets a fairly unfair rep for a lot of Celtic fans, but
I agree.
It shows that Rodgers is actually getting to pick his backroom staff, so it shows a wee bit more control over the fitness side of things.
I think Rodgers mentioned in his press conference as well yesterday, it seems like John Kennedy's going to be some part of his team as well.
I think that was always going to be the case. I think Kennedy's obviously been there for quite a while. He was obviously a player for a long time, and when he gave up playing, I think Gordon Strachan was still the manager at the time, and I'm sure he went on to the coaching from then. So I think he's kind of highly regarded at Celtic Park as a coach, along with Stevie Woods, the goalkeeping coach, who's going to stay. And I think, obviously, if Brendan Rodgers wanted rid of him, I'd imagine Brendan Rodgers would have enough say that he would be able to get rid of him, but that doesn't seem to be the case. And I don't think it'll harm Brendan Rodgers to have somebody that's been at the club for so long, knows Scottish football inside and out, to be there.
I agree with that as well. We'll move on to the player side here. On the official podcast Twitter today, that's at Respect the Pod, we done a few polls to see in terms of where people thought that Rodgers would have to strengthen, and if there was any players who currently weren't first team picks, as you like, could possibly come through. So overall, as to what area of the park needs strengthening most, under Brendan Rodgers, and overwhelmingly 50% of the people who voted for the defence. Is that something you agree with? I think it's the first priority, Hunter?
That I voted for defence. I was looking at the question, trying to make sense of it at the time, because I was just kind of focusing on it, and I realised that it was what most need strengthening, because I think goalkeeper wise we're fine. I think midfield we actually have to get players out. Strikers we only really have Griffiths, so definitely a priority area where we need to get players in, but definitely defence, because I think what cost us last year in Europe was poor defending. The goals we gave away against Malmo were an absolute shambles. Some of the goals we gave away in the group stages of the Europa League were absolutely embarrassing for a team at that level, so I think that's the key area for us. I think we did well in January bringing in Sviatchenko, but we have to just kind of wait and see what he's going to do there, but that for me is the priority.
Chris, do you agree with that?
Aye, Rodgers said it himself. I think he said about his defence, he wants them to be aggressive, and I think that would mean that maybe all the defenders would probably be away, apart from maybe Sviatchenko, who, I think we all agree he's a class act at the club at the minute, and I think he's got to come in and bring in defenders. I know a lot of people are talking about 2-minute midfielders and stuff, but you need to remember Rodgers has not had a look at the players yet, so he'll probably have 4 or 5 players in mind, I'd imagine, at the minute, probably changing on time he gets his first look. Because I remember when we signed Stratton got the job, he brought in Jeremy earlier the year straight away, and he hadn't even looked at Maloney or McGeady yet, and he ended up having to send earlier the year back. So I think Rodgers will come in and he'll assess his team and he'll do it quickly, but defence is a must for us. It has been for a while. We do have the basis. I mean, I'd love to see Simunovic and Sviatchenko next to each other, but if Simunovic isn't going to get himself fit, then I'd imagine we're not going to see much of that. I think a right back, I think Lustig was coming on again towards the end of the season, but his kind of injury record, he's only one bad jump or one bad landing away from being out for 6 weeks, so I would sign a right back. I don't see Yanko really pushing him out of the team.
I can't believe he says we didn't have aggressive defenders and forgot to mention Kieran Tierney. Flies any tackles.
No, well, Tierney, we'll give Tierney his due, but I mean, I thought what Brendan Rodgers meant by that was let defenders that get the ball and just get rid of it, and try and start attacks, whereas we try and build for the back rather than. I think Rodgers wants defence to get the ball in the midfield so they can build. I don't think these teams at Liverpool played much the ball across the back a lot, so that's what I mean. He'd dafties like Skittle and Sacco flying into tackles and stuff, and Tierney obviously will bring some of that, but I thought what he meant was players like, I'm thinking that Ambrose touching the ball 4 or 5 times, but I try to do Cruyff turns and losing the ball. I think he wants his defenders just to defend and get the ball to a midfielder.
I wonder your point there on Boyata there. I wonder if we'll see maybe a different Boyata, because part of me think the kind of the Cruyff turns and the tippy tappy at the back pish was more to do with what he was being told by the coaches, how the coaches wanted him to play, rather than that being his actual style of play. And maybe I hadn't seen enough of Boyata before we signed him to make a judgment on whether that is his game or not, but I wonder if perhaps we might see a different Boyata.
I think it's possible. I think it is quite. I'm sure Rodgers will watch a fair majority of our games from the last 9 to 12 months. I think it's fair that he gives everybody a fair chance.
I think he has said that he's watched every goal that we've scored and every goal we've conceded, so he'll have an idea of what's been terrible defensively and what's been good attack wise, so I think there'll still be elements, full games he'll want to watch, stuff like that, but I think he'll should have an okay idea of things at the moment. Better for him once he's obviously got them all back for pre-season, and then he can kind of see what they're actually like in person.
Obviously there's players going to go. The midfield seems to be the obvious position that's going to lose quite a fair amount of players, so I picked 4 players that they've been about the first team, but they're probably not undroppable at this point. And that was on next spot was which of these midfielders will flourish under Brendan Rodgers. So I put in Tom Rogic, Callum McGregor, Christopher Ajer and Liam Henderson. So this was a bit of a tighter one. Ajer only got 9%, but the other three was 26% voted for Rogic, 29% for Callum McGregor, and Liam Henderson actually won the poll with 36%. So, any thoughts on any of the players, Bruce?
I think Rodgers gets a wee bit unlucky. People just assume that he's Dyer signing, and he'll probably not get a look in. But I'd imagine he's out the four. I'd imagine Ayer's the most likely to get a chance first in the team. But I like Henderson a lot. I like McGregor a lot. I think he's a good season. And Rogic, I think we discussed Rogic last year, didn't we? Saying that we didn't think he was going to come up for us when it mattered, and then he scored 2 big goals for us towards the end of the season. So I think Rogic is an established first team player. I think his place in that poll, nobody. I would have picked somebody else, but maybe like Christie. But I think Adger will come in. I think Rodgers might look at him and say, "Well, I'm you as well in game." Plus, this boy's only 17, so he's captain of his team in the room, I'd imagine. I think so. I'm excited for him, but I think he will get the reputation. If he's bad in his first 3 games, then the fans will jump on him saying that he's a Dyer signing and blah blah. Midfield vote it. We know that Rodgers said that he prefers to keep a tight squad with the potential for youth players to break into. So I think we could see the 4 you mentioned. I think Rogic, if a good offer, he could be away. McGregor, I'd imagine, maybe hang about, and Adger will hang about, so maybe in the youth team. So I really think you need to give Rodgers time before we start thinking about who is going to come in. Because I think we've been linked with Tom Carroll today, so that's another midfielder. How many? Rodgers
that's the first 3 players I've seen as linked to is Tom Carroll, Stevie Gerrard and John Joe Shelby, and then you're just thinking
Joe Allen as well.
Wee Joe.
Well, we're odds on in every about you to sign Joe Allen, so I mean I'd imagine that's just one of the links because of Rodgers, but Joe Allen would automatically walk in and be your best midfielder in my opinion.
Hunter, what's your take on the midfield position?
I'd slightly disagree with Bruce about Ayer in that he's 17, and I think perhaps he's maybe not going to be about the first team at the moment. I know Rodgers is giving young guys a chance before at Liverpool, Jordan Ibe and Raheem Sterling and whatnot, but for me on that list, obviously I agree with Bruce in that he's saying Rogic you can kind of probably consider a first choice midfielder now. I think hopefully Callum McGregor will build on the season he had last season, because I thought he was really, really good, really on board with Callum McGregor now, because I really was unsure about him, but I really rate him, and I hope he's a big part of our midfield in the future, obviously starting this summer. But I think I agree with the poll in terms of Henderson, because he's coming back from Hibs. It's a good year of experience he's got under his belt, played in our first team before as well, and he's another young guy as well, so I think he could be potentially the big one for Rodgers.
On Christopher Adger, I've got his stats here. Last season he made 34 appearances and scored 12 goals for his club, and so far this season he's made 12 appearances and scored 1 goal. So further forward, there's a lot of talk. Obviously we seemed heavily reliant on Griffiths last season, so it was just to see if he felt there was anybody who could come out and establish themselves as a strike partner or good link up with Griffiths. So the poll had Anthony Stokes, Nadir Chifche, Stefan Skepovic, who we're not entirely sure if he's still a Celtic player, and Colin Kazim-Richards. This was a runaway winner for Anthony Stokes, who got 58% of the votes. So Hunter, do you agree with that, or do you think there's anybody there who can produce when it matters next season?
Short answer, no. I don't think any of those players have a future at Celtic. I liked Skepovic when he was about. I was a bit disappointed he went out on loan this season, because I did really want him to get his chance, because whenever he played, more times than not, he was scoring. I felt like there was possibly a player in there, but I do have a feeling that some of your in the know types on Twitter have said that he's away, which I think's a bit of a shame, because I really don't think he was given enough of a chance. Stokes has had a million chances at Celtic, even played really well in the Scottish Cup final on Saturday, but there were still elements of that game where you saw what frustrates you about him. He's had his chance at Celtic, and I think he's done. Chifche, was a really poor signing last season. I was not interested in signing Nadir Chifchi. Was willing to give him a chance, but he was absolutely awful, and I don't see any future for him there. Obviously, we spoke off pod on Monday about rumours about Kazim Richards, the way he kind of was bombed out the team after scoring that good goal against Hearts. Really see a future there if the rumours were true. If not, and he's maybe got a chance in the squad, but I don't see him being the first team.
We obviously can't say the rumour on air, but like Hunter's pointing towards, if it is true, then it would explain why he's been out of the team and not injured.
Like you say, we don't know if it's true or not. Just what we've heard allegedly. If it was to be true, you can't really see him kind of getting back in the team. You can kind of just see him quietly being let go. I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Bruce, what's your thoughts on the forward positions?
I think Stokes is still living off Saturday, isn't he? With a lot of Celtic fans. I just don't think Stokes is good enough. I think he had a great game on Saturday, and I like him in a lot of ways. I think he's had a good Celtic career, but time for him to go. Skeptovic, I liked him, but that Hunter, I thought he got a bit of a raw deal where he seemed to, every time he started, he seemed to score, and then he get dropped for the next 12 games. Chiefs typical kind of fickle football fan. I talked myself into accepting Chiefs when he signed just because he was a Celtic player, and he missed too many gilt-edged chances. If he was ever going to make it as a Celtic player, he would have scored a good few of the chances that he was missing. And the other one, Kazim Richards, I like him. There's something about him. I like how he's just unpredictable. I think it's a word. And I like how quickly he bought into the whole thing about Celtic, whereas when he came up against Pittodrie, we were 2-0 down, he came on, and there's no doubt he changed the game in our favour, even though we still get beat. Got a right good shift in. And I don't think he's had many bad games. I just think because he's not scoring every week, people seem to kind of go against him. I thought he was unlucky to be left out of the semi-final. I actually think him running at Tavernier might have caused them problems, the same problems that Stokes caused him on Saturday. And then he scored a great goal at Tynecastle. We've not seen him since. I'd imagine Rodgers, I don't think Rodgers will fancy him. I think Rodgers will fancy different players playing out wide, but who knows. If I had to pick one of them out the poll, it'd be Kazim Richards. I think that's who I voted for, just because he's the one that's there, and but to be honest, I don't think any of the four will be part of my plans going forward.
I just want to make a wee kind of caveat in case anyone is a big Stokes fan and is listening to this, in case I sound unnecessarily harsh. I really liked Stokes. I thought season 10-11 he linked up really well with Hooper, same again 11-12. I thought they had a really good partnership. I think he served us quite well. He was kind of decent SPL player, SPFL Premiership player, did a decent job for us there. Didn't really get a chance to do it in Europe. When he did, he was never really up to the standard. I think he's a half decent player, and he'll go with kind of my best wishes, but I think he's had his opportunity, and it is probably time for him to go.
Out of the strikers, I think I'm pretty similar to you. I like Stokes as well, and don't get me wrong, I cheered when he scored on the weekend. I was happy for him, happy for boys like Henderson and that as well. But I just think he has had too many chances. Not too many chances, he's had enough chances. Lennon always felt he couldn't trust him in Europe, in Old Firm games in Europe.
What?
He's played enough. Sorry, there is no Old Firm. I think he played enough in Europe to be judged, and I don't think he was good enough. I think the stat is that Virgil van Dijk scored more European goals for Celtic than him, so I think that probably tells you all you need to know about him in Europe. And all the best to him. He's been a good, like you say, that partnership he had with Hooper was great for a season, but ever since Hooper left, I don't think he's really been the answer long term. Skepovic, I was a fan, but like you say, he's not had enough chances. Maybe Scottish football isn't for him, but Chifchi, same as Bruce, talked myself into it, wanted to work, just didn't work. And Kazim Richards, we'll see what happens, but I wouldn't be surprised if he left in the summer as well. So I'm just going to get closing statements from the boys and we'll leave it. So start with you, Hunter.
Great to be back on the pod for the first time in a wee while. Great to have Brendan Rodgers as our new manager, and I'm absolutely buzzing for next season, and I'm hoping to see a different Celtic team.
And can anybody find you on Twitter?
Yeah, they can if they look hard enough. I'm at JamesNotThatOne.
Bruce?
Closing thoughts. Hope it's got to be exciting. I've just pulled up Rodgers' managerial stats, and his teams are Brendan Rodgers' managerial career. He's seen his goal difference is plus 128, which is it's off Wikipedia, so that should be exciting going forward. And Celtic are 40-1 to go unbeaten in the league next season.
And can people find you on Twitter?
They can, but whether I want them, they know it's a different matter. You can find Bruce Hillboy or Brucey Bonus MUA for any makeup bidding fans out there. Yeah, you can find me there. You can find is it nothing but respect or respect?
At respect the pod.
We're too late for the polls, but I'm sure they'll probably be there.
We will be doing future polls, of course. You can find me at Brendan's Boy. You can find me at OC Boy. And I'm looking forward to the Rodgers Revolution. We will be back in time for the first Champions League qualifier, and we'll do a wee preview as well, looking at signings that have come in and players that have left. So look out for those in early July probably. You can always find us at Respect the Pod, and if you've made it this far, we've got nothing but respect for you. Cheers for listening. Hail hail.